students, welcome back to my class. So today we are going to start a new lesson of the class 5th. So today we are starting another unit, 6th unit, A reading. So name of the lesson is already I have mentioned on the board, is nothing but the witty Nasruddin. So what do you mean by witty? Everyone is having a question. Ma'am, what do you mean by witty? Witty is nothing but a clever and a funny person. A person who is a clever and a funny person is called witty. So I think the story is going to be a little bit funny story, which we are going to start in a few seconds. So who is a clever and a funny person here in the story is the Nasruddin. So we are going to talk about the Nasruddin, who is very much clever and funny. Here I have written some meanings which are already mentioned in your reader, which will help us to go through it if we get these words in our story. So without any further delay, let's start our story. So a poor traveler. Who is a traveler? Traveler means a person who travels a lot, is mean by a traveler. Okay, so a poor traveler was walking through the streets of Al-Shahir. Okay, so the traveler was traveling through the streets of, street का name क्या है? Al-Shahir. So this is the name of the street. The poor traveler was traveling from this street, which its name is Al-Shahir. Okay, let's see what happened next. He had a little to eat for 2 days. So he is having so little food to eat, which is for 2 days. He had spent his last coins, and all that remained in his pockets was a piece of a dry bread. So what is happening here is all of the coins, all of the money which he is having, he was a poor traveler. How much he could be having? So much of little. That so much of little coins also he has spent it all. And what is having remained with him is a dry piece of bread. And he has little to eat, which is nothing but a dry piece of bread that he had to continue that dry piece of bread for 2 days. Until that 2 days, he is having nothing at all with him except that a piece of a dry bread. So let's see what happened next. As he passed by an eating house, so next what happened? He was going to the streets of the Al-Shahir, this poor traveler. So क्या हुआ next? He was passing by an eating house. So when we are walking on the streets, we may be seeing so many houses. So in that way only, the poor traveler has seen a eating house. He saw several people sitting around the fire, eating and drinking. As you can see in your picture, which is in the textbook, which is given, that there are several people who are eating and drinking, sitting in a round circle, and the fire is there in between, and they are enjoying the food, eating and drinking all together. उन लोग जो है सब अच्छे तरीके से खा रहे थे, drinks, soft drinks ले रहे थे. There was a fire in between. On the fire there was a large cooking pot. Yes, so on the fire what is there? On the fire there is a, so this is the fire. So on the fire there is a large cooking pot. Yes, large cooking pot full of meatballs. So in this pot what is there? Meatballs. So meatballs were cooking on this large, what you can say, cooking pot full of meatballs. Everybody loves meatballs, like kebabs. It could be meatballs. This is the very much delicious and tasty food that if we smell these meatballs, everyone wants to eat. अगर हम fragrance सुन लेंगे ये meatballs की, kebabs की, everyone loves to eat such kind of food, giving off a lovely smell. Yes, as I said, that meatballs giving us so much of lovely smell that the poor traveler wants to eat it. Why? Because he was having only a dry piece of bread with him, and he was going through this street, and the fragrance and the smell of these meatballs resist him to stand over there. You can be sure that this smell made the hungry man's mouth water. As I said, everyone loves meatballs, kebabs. So the same has happened with this poor traveler, that the smell made him that he was also hungry. We have discussed just now. वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा hungry भी था, starving कर रहा था. While smelling the smell of this, what you can say, meatballs, his mouth was watering. उसके mouth watering हो रहा था. The owner of the eating house stood there. The owner of the eating house, the one who is, what you can say, serving these meatballs to the other persons, was standing there. And he was serving to his customers, the people who were sitting around and drinking and eating these meatballs. Yes, the owner was serving to his customers. Who are customer? Customer means a person who buys goods is called the customer. So the persons were purchasing those meatballs and enjoying their dinner very happily and deliciously. They are eating it with full of joy. Why? Because they are so much delicious and the smells is so, what you can say, marvelous. He asked the traveler if he wanted to buy some meatballs, but the poor man turned away. What happened? That what he asked, the owner of this meatball asked, अगर तुम्हें चाहिए तो तुम्हें purchase करना पड़ेगा. You have to purchase this meatballs. You have to buy these meatballs. But what we know that this poor traveler doesn't have any coins with him. So he turned away, और वो पलट गया था. Why? Because he is not having money to purchase these meatballs. A man without money never buys anything, he said. So what did the poor traveler said? अगर किसी के पास पैसे नहीं हो तो वो कुछ भी purchase या buy नहीं कर सकता. He replied this to the owner by saying this. So while saying this, without money nobody can purchase anything, said the poor traveler, which is very true statement. Yet the traveler walked to and fro enjoying the smell. So traveler ने क्या किया? He just started walking. He turned away and started walking. He just enjoying the smell. Yes, enjoying the smell of these meatballs. Enjoying the smell of these meatballs. He was standing quiet, or else he was walking on that streets only. He took the piece of a dry bread out of his pocket and held it over the pot. So what he is having? He is having a piece of a dry bread with him. So he take out that a piece of a dry bread from his pocket and keep it over the pot. Yes. After a minute or two, he slowly ate that bread. 1-2 minute के बाद that poor traveler had started eating that bread, and he tried to imagine that it tasted better than what he had smell of meatballs. तो उसने क्या किया? जब वो meatballs खा रहा था तो वह ऐसे imagine कर रहा था that he is eating the meatballs. He is imagining the smell of the meatballs and eating that dry bread as if वो meatballs ही खा रहा था. He was considering the taste of the meatballs and the smell of the meatballs into his mind and eating that dry bread. The eating housekeeper got angry when he saw the man doing this. So the owner who was selling that meatballs saw the poor traveler that he is doing this, eating the bread and smelling the meatballs, smelling the fragrance of the meatballs and eating that bread. So what happened? This owner has seen him and got angry, और वो गुस्सा हो चुका था when he saw the man doing this. Okay, so let's see what happened. What did that owner did to that poor traveler? Let's see. He took hold of his arm roughly and hurried him round the corner to the magistrate court. तो उसने क्या किया? He hold his arm tightly. Yes. Okay. And then roughly and tightly and took him round to the corner and उसने उसे कॉर्नर में ले गया where the magistrate court is there. So what do you mean by magistrate? A judge in a law court. So he took him to the judge, magistrate's court, where the judge is going to sit there and solve all the problems whoever comes to magistrate. So he took him roughly to the corner of the magistrate court. It happened that Nasruddin, the Hodja, was acting as magistrate that day. तो उस दिन क्या हुआ? It happened that Nasruddin जो है उस दिन acting as a magistrate that day. So Nasruddin was the magistrate on that day when this poor traveler was bring in the court. So what happened? What did the Nasruddin did with that poor traveler? What did this owner of this meatball said to magistrate? Let's see. So when he asked what's the matter was, so the Nasruddin was asking, what's the matter? हुआ क्या है आखिर? Yes, the eating housekeeper said to him. So he wanted to know the matter. So this housekeeper, so this eating housekeeper said to the magistrate that this man came into my eating house, this poor traveler जो है मेरे घर पर आया था eating house without any money. Yes, and what happened? And helped himself with the smell of the meatballs which were cooking in the pot. So the owner said this poor traveler came into my eating house without the money and helped himself, और अपने आप को उसने क्या किया? With the smell of my meeting balls which are cooking in the pot, he must be forced to pay me. उसने मेरे meatballs की smell सुनी है. Is this so funny? Yes. So what is happening here is the shopkeeper of these meeting balls is complaining in front of the magistrate that the poor traveler has smelled the cooking meatballs. उसने जो है meatballs की smell सुन ली है poor traveler ने without paying the money. अब उसे जो है pay करना पड़ेगा. Why? Because he has smelled my meatballs. So is this so funny, students? If anyone is smelling something, are we allowed to pay anything for that? But this owner is asking the poor traveler that he has to pay the money thus for the smell of these meatballs. So let's see how the magistrate, who is Nasruddin, is going to do the judgment over this matter. So what happened next? The Hoja, who is nothing but the Hoja, is nothing but the magistrate Nasruddin. The Nasruddin took 2 coins from his pocket. Okay, so he has to solve this matter. One side there is a poor traveler and the next side is there is a housekeeper, owner of these meeting balls, who is asking the poor traveler to pay the money for the smell of these meatballs. He has smelled the meatballs and he has to pay the money for this smelling. So how the magistrate is going to solve this issue? Let's see. The Hodja took 2 coins from his pocket but put them between his hands. So he took 2 coins and put them in his hands and shook them together backward and forward against the eating housekeeper right ears. So what did he did? He took 2 coins in his hands and he shook them together. उसने उसे shake किया to backward and forward of the right ear against the shopkeeper. He started shaking that 2 coins against the ear of the shopkeeper backward way or forward way, forward and backward. Okay, so he was shaking that coins very close to his ear backward and the forward. Can you hear anything? He asked the man. So the Nasruddin asked this shopkeeper, so can you hear anything? क्या तुम कुछ सुन सकते हो? Yes sir, I can. The eating housekeeper replied. तो उसने कहा बिल्कुल मैं सुन सकता हूँ. I can, said the eating housekeeper. Now can you still hear something? Hodja asked as he shook the 2 coins. So what did he did? Hodja asked as he shook the 2 coins together against the left arm of the man. First, what he did? He shook that 2 coins against the right ear, backward and the forward. That same thing he did to the left ear, backward and forward together. So again he asked, can you hear? So what did the shopkeeper said? Yes sir, I can still hear the shaking noise of the coins. I can hear the coins shaking together. So shopkeeper asked, but what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You are shaking the 2 coins right forward and backward over my right ear and over my left ear and asking me what you can hear. So he said, yes, I can hear the noise of the coins. But why are you doing this? The Hodja put the coins back in his pocket. So he kept his 2 coins into his pocket and answered, और उन्होंने कहा, surely the sound of the money is a fair payment for the smell of food. So what did the Nasruddin said? The Nasruddin is nothing but the witty Nasruddin, which is who is a very clever and funny person. So what did he said? Surely the sound of these 2 coins which you are hearing from the right ear and from the left ear is a fair payment for the smell of the food. Yes. So Nasruddin ने कहा कि ये जो sound तुम्हें सुनाई दे रहा है is the fair payment of the smell of your meatballs. Okay, so in this way the Nasruddin has solved this issue. The poor traveler has only smelled the meatballs, smell the, what you can say, fragrance of these meatballs. For that, this shopkeeper has asked him to pay for the money. So in this way only the magistrate has also solved his problem by only listening the sound of that money is the fair payment of the smell of the food which the poor traveler has smelled. You have therefore been paid twice. So the witty Nasruddin ने क्या कहा? तुम्हें तो मैंने 2 बार पे कर दिया है. Twice you have been paid from the right ear and from the left ear. And that is more than enough. For that, the smell of the food which the poor traveler has listened, उस हिसाब से तो हमने तुम्हें बहुत ज़्यादा payment दे दिया है, which is more than enough. Let this poor traveler continue his journey. So at the end, the witty Nasruddin has said, let this poor traveler continue his journey. अब उसे अपनी journey पे जाने दो. Journey is nothing but an act of traveling. Let him go away and continue his traveling. So in this way the witty Nasruddin has made a conclusion and solved the matter in a beautiful and funny way which doesn't, what you can say, harm to the poor traveler. Only he has smelled the fragrance of that meatballs. In that way only the witty Nasruddin, who is the magistrate on that day, solved this matter by making the sound of the coins into the ear of this owner of this shopkeeper who sells these meatballs from the right ear and from the left ear, and said in the end, and that we have paid you twice for that smell of the food which is more than enough. This is a fair payment for your smell of food. Let the traveler go on his journey. So in this way the story comes to an end. In the next class we are going to start the grammar part of this unit A reading, the witty Nasruddin. Till then try to learn these meanings which are new to you. We will be back with another class with the grammar part. Thank you.